Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
It's there.
I've even seen where, I've even seen in some studies and things where they say like being on your phone in bed, and I mean, I'd be lying if I said I'm never on my phone in bed. I sleep perfectly. Like, no, I mean, I'm a person like anybody else. But our brain will, it confuses our brain because our brain thinks that light is daylight.
Mm-hmm.
So it can throw off our circadian rhythms, when we sleep, all sorts of different things.
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you made the choice to watch our show this evening and joining us for another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast with your hosts, Steve Hodgson and Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Today's episode is titled BedRotting, TikTok Trend Meets Mental Health Reality. Today, we're tackling one of the newest trends in mental health conversations, bedrotting. Now, if you haven't heard of it, bedrotting is when people intentionally spend long stretches of time in bed, awake, scrolling on their phones, binge-watching shows, snacking, or just checking out from the world. Some call it self-care, others see it as a red flag. And here's the surprising part, this isn't just a small social media fad. According to a 2024 survey by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, 14% of U.S. adults say they've tried bedrotting, and among young adults, nearly 1 in 4, 25%, report actually doing it. The stats are just about the same whether it is males or females. On TikTok, the hashtag #bedrotting has racked up billions of views. Clearly, people are connecting with this idea in a big way. In this episode, we're going to unpack what's behind the trend, when it's harmless relaxation, and when it may point to something deeper like stress, burnout, or depression. We'll share both the risks and the potential benefits, and offer some practical insight on healthier ways to rest and recharge. Stay tuned, because this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, and welcome to another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, along with my co-host, the unconscious unscrambler himself, licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis, where each week we bring you conversations that shine a light on mental health, wellness, and the everyday challenges people face. Dr. Davis, it's good to have you sitting with me here again.
Yeah, like
it seems like it was forever, though it's only been like a week that you really weren't here, but there was so many interviews that I did, I think, in between that it was imaginable. Now, if we would, can you just take a minute, so our listeners that have listened, can you give them at least a little update on what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So my niece Adelie is currently in the hospital. She has cancer, so she's dealing with what's called a yolk sac tumor in her abdomen. She's receiving chemo and is currently stable, but it's definitely a very fluid situation, and any prayers are definitely welcome.
Now, how old is Adelie? For
9 years old.
9 years old. Yeah. So I want people to understand that, because sometimes you say your niece, they think this is a young child and stuff. So please, as I said in one of the last episodes that I did here, the prayer warriors out there, please pray. And in fact, next week we're actually going to do an interesting show. The first half of the show is going to be on prayer and mental health. We just keep that topic going along, and then hopefully we have a really good interview that's going to be lined up for that as well. So Okay, now today, well, before we get started, I should say, let's add a quick message from our sponsor, Waypost Counsel.
Let's face it, life can feel like too much at times. Stress, loss, big changes. They can leave us feeling lost. But taking the step to reach out for help, that takes real strength. That's why Waypost Counseling exists. Founded in 2020 by Dr. Eric L. Davis and licensed therapist Aaron Davis, Waypost Counseling was created to be more than a counseling office. It's a place where people are heard, supported, and given the tools to move forward. Waypost Counseling offers more than just therapy sessions. They provide individual and couples counseling, specialized help for problem gambling, and consulting services. Their team supports adults facing ADHD, grief, addiction, relationship struggles, and major transitions in life. The name Waypost captures their heart. It's a marker along the path, helping you see where you are and where you want to go. Therapy doesn't have to feel overwhelming. At Waypost Counseling, you'll find honesty, warmth, and practical solutions that create lasting change. Whether you're in Indiana or anywhere in the U.S., you can connect with them in person or online. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The first step is what matters. Visit waypostcounseling.com or call 317-762-0904 to connect with Dr. Eric Davis or 317-659-0179 to reach Aaron Davis. Waypost Counseling is certified by the Indiana FSSA Division of Mental Health and Addiction and the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Abuse. Remember, you know that your life matters, and right now your next step matters. Make the call today.
All right, so today we're going to handle a topic that was very strange to me. It's called BedRotting. Now, it's a TikTok trend, okay? And actually, the title is "The TikTok Trend Meets Mental Health Reality." Now, the first, I got to be honest, folks, I'm not on TikTok. So the first time I heard of BedRotting, I started thinking of some old wooden bed frame that was wood, that was all moldy, splitting, falling apart. I thought it was going to be one of those, things where they repair and bring back antiques and stuff. But I mean, heck, in my mind, the horror films went to a battered mattress or a corpse deteriorating. But I've watched too many horror films. But today we're going to tackle something that's making national headlines, and it's trending across the internet, TikTok, and all these other places, and it's sparking real debates in the mental health community. And again, the term is BedRotting. Now, if you've never heard the phrase before, it might sound a little strange or may even be a bit funny, but here's what it means. BedRotting is the idea of intentionally staying in bed for long stretches of time, not to sleep, but to scroll through your phone, binge watch shows, snack, or just lie there without much effort. Now, for some, it's being celebrated as a form of rest and self-care in a fast-paced world. For others, it raises red flags about depression, burnout, and potential risk of spending too much time isolating in bed. Now, we're not talking about if you're not feeling well and staying in bed for the day. Okay, this is an intentional thing of saying, guess what? I'm not getting out of bed today. It's time to go to the bathroom. Okay, I'm really staying in bed. Now, what's fascinating to me, but all these trends are fascinating, how quickly it's become a cultural trend. Okay, surveys show that more than 1 in 10 adults in the U.S. have already tried BedRotting, and the numbers climb higher amongst the younger generation. Now, on social media, the hashtag BedRotting has racked up millions, no, let me rephrase that, billions of views. Clearly, it's striking a chord with some people, and it's not just one of those passing jokes. It's touching on something deeper about how we cope with stress, exhaustion, and modern life. So in this episode tonight, Dr. Davis and I are going to unpack both sides of this trend. We'll look at the psychology behind why people may be drawn to BedRotting, when it can actually be harmless or even helpful, and when it might be a signal that there's maybe something else going on and something's wrong. But we're going to talk about healthier alternatives for finding balance, ways to rest, recharge, without slipping into habits that can make things worse over time. So whether you BedRotted yourself, that sounds terrible, on a tough weekend, or just curious, what's all the buzz about? This is a conversation you're not going to want to miss. Okay, before we dive in, for all our listeners out there, I want to ask you, our listeners, a question. Have you ever had one of those days where you just stayed in bed, scrolling, watching shows, doing absolutely nothing productive? Now, I want you to be honest. Okay, would you call that relaxing self-care, or does it feel more like you're hiding from the world? So I want you to do us a favor in the comment section. Okay, I want you to drop a comment, drop an answer to that, because we'd love to know where you all stand on this trend. Because there's a lot of you watching, so we want to hear from somebody. All right, Dr. Davis, enough of me talking. Let's kick this off. When you first heard the phrase bedrotting, what did you think it meant, and how does that compare to what you see it representing now?
I mean, honestly, when I first heard that term, my brain went where yours did. Like, what is this? Like you're rotting in bed, or, you know, and that's kind of, I mean, I definitely was taken aback, so to speak, by that. Like, what? But it's just staying in bed. I mean, that's really it. It's just a new way of saying staying in bed. Um, like you said, not getting out of bed. Um, basically taking the day off from society is another way I kind of look at what it means.
So why did it take off so quickly, like on TikTok and social media, especially with the younger people? I mean,
Yeah,
they
I'm not
looking to
really
get away from us.
maybe, maybe. I don't know. My guess would be that COVID probably, affected that,
Mhm.
in some ways because, we went from everybody leaves the house, everybody comes home, everybody leaves, to we're just home. And now a lot of individuals work from home. I work from home a lot more often than I used to. So I think that's probably, I think as technology has evolved and people are working remotely and so forth, I think that's probably a big reason that it's kind of, and plus they're calling it bed rotting now versus what it was called before.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, is it just, I don't think it's really something new. I think it's just rebranding a
Yeah,
term that, we used to call, I'm trying to think. I know when we were younger, it's just like I'm just taking escape day,
yeah,
where I'm just going to stay in bed today and just,
yeah,
binge watch some, show and stuff. I mean, we all did it. It was, it was fine. And there's some days I know health wise that, I just want people to understand it's not the same thing if you're not feeling well and you're
yeah.
staying in bed all day. That's not bed rotting. Okay, we may be rotting in the bed, but it's not bed rotting. So, from a clinical standpoint, when can spending extended time in bed be considered harmless self-care compared to when does it become a concern for people?
So I think the biggest thing is you have to look at the frequency, of how long or how often this is happening. Because you know, if once every couple of months, maybe I just feel burned out and I say, okay, I'm going to bed rot today, and I take the day off and I take care of me and then go back to work the next day. That truly could be some amazing self-care. I mean, there's no question about that. But if a person finds that it is affecting their sleep cycle, where it's interfering with their job, with their family, at that point, then it's problematic.
And basically, if you're retreating from life amongst your friends and stuff, that's, that there's a warning sign behind that. I mean,
For sure.
even working when I worked like almost 6 days a week, my phrase on the seventh day was even the Lord rested on the seventh day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would just say, I ain't going nowhere today. Okay. I'm staying in bed. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get up, take my meal, go back and eat it in bed, and I'm just going to lay down. I'm just going to relax, nap when I need to and stuff. And that was fine because I wasn't doing it every day. It was just every once in a while. We all need just shut off and turn off from everything that's going on. So, what risks do you see in making the bed a place for everything? Like people eat, they scroll, they, watch TV, everything except sleep.
Yeah.
That's got
I
to become a problem at some point.
well, our brain associates, our brain makes connections constantly. Names, faces, et cetera. We're constantly, if you think about a food, you think about what it tastes like. I mean, um, there's any number of things. And I think the danger of that is that our brain starts to associate, the bed with stimulation versus rest, where it's if every time I lay down in my bed, I'm scrolling on my phone or I'm watching TV or whatever, then that's what my brain is going to associate with that place. And it's a healthy thing for our brain to associate our bed with sleep. I mean, that's a very healthy thing.
My mind went off somewhere first when you talk about stimulating when you go to bed, but yeah, we do. I understand what you're talking about
Yeah,
there too,
absolutely.
because that probably just confused some of our listeners there. But it's true. If I know myself, I don't text, or I try not to text. Okay, unless it's like if you text me or my brother, something with my dad or something will text me. But regular text from friends and stuff, I just don't bother. In fact, 9 out of 10 times I don't even look at my phone. That's
Well,
there
I've
ignite.
even seen where, I've even seen in some studies and things where they say like being on your phone in bed, and I mean, I'd be lying if I said I'm never on my phone in bed. I sleep perfectly. Like, no, I mean, I'm a person like anybody else. Um, but our brain will, it confuses our brain because our brain thinks that light is daylight.
Hmm.
So it can throw off our circadian rhythms, when we sleep, all sorts of different things.
And that light isn't actually good for our eyes and stuff anyway,
No,
too.
no,
For
no. My
computers,
my
all
eye
that stuff.
doctor even told me recently I had to get a update my prescription for my glasses, and my eye doctor was telling me, she said, "Yeah, it is. It's people's eyes are hurting a lot more these days because we stare at a screen all day, and then you take a break and stare at a smaller screen on your phone." It's just, and it was like, wow, that's so true. We're constantly staring at screens now.
We probably do a whole show on addicted to phones.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
how many times you're at a concert and, I mean, I've been to hundreds of concerts in my lifetime, but now you go there and everybody, all you see them is with their cell phone up in the air filming. It's like, okay, yeah, I get it. You want to watch it back later, remember it, or show it to your friends, but you're not enjoying the concert.
Yeah.
You're not immersed in the concert if you're immersed in your phone. I mean, I find myself guilty of that too. Anyone who saw my Facebook page for a few years,
Yeah.
every once in a while, but I would only film like 30, 40 seconds of a song.
Mhm.
And I put the
Yeah.
phone down because I'm enjoying the show. That's what I was
And
doing.
another thing, just this is out of left field, but while we're talking about phones really fast, something I've really noticed is every time I'm behind someone on the road and they're going like this, they're like, if I go around to pass them, they're staring down at their phone driving, which is highly illegal now, but
Hmm.
and that we should talk about phones. Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary thing, the only time I'll be on my phone, even if I'm in my wife's car, which my phone doesn't Bluetooth to, or it does, but she doesn't want it because it knocks hers out when we do that. But if it's not Bluetooth, it's on speaker.
Yeah.
And if I can't hear you on speaker, then it's not. Usually my wife's in the car and she'll take my phone and she'll hold my phone up in the air next to me while I'm driving. So at least I can hear what the other person's saying. But no, don't text, please, okay? If we'll end that part of it.
Yeah.
Don't text and drive, folks.
Yes.
Okay. The very second you take your eyes off the road, that car in front of you hits the brake. By the time you look up, you already lost 2 or 3 seconds, and that
Yeah.
might be your life in that two or
Yeah.
three seconds. So,
If it's an emergency, pull over and text all
yeah.
you want. But
Hey,
you know,
I've actually pulled over and taken phone calls.
mhm.
I pulled off on the side of the road and sat and talked to a client and stuff where I had to look something up, but I was off on the side of the road. I could talk to them when I was done, pull back onto the road, and was fine. So now growing up, we're back to bedrotting. Growing up, We rarely saw our parents stay in bed unless they were sick or obviously clinically depressed, because that's something a clinically depressed person would do. So, they either had to be exhausted after working a number of hours, if they did. Most of the time, they did it without complaining. It's just the thing to do. For homes that the dad worked, mom had a 24/7 job of cleaning, cooking, taking care of the kids, taking care of her husband, the laundry, shopping, and so much more. So yes, women, we are saying you have a really good job when you're staying at home. It's just as important as the husbands. And I'm sure many times they would have loved to just stayed in bed and chilled, as they say. So why do you think younger adults, and I'm not picking on them, but especially Gen Z, are more likely to embrace or talk about bed rotting?
I think, first of all, because they're number one, they're connected, way more so than when I was a young adult, with the internet and everything. And I think that with TikTok, and social media, I think that a lot of different things have been, and not necessarily bad things, have been more glamorized. If you think about it, like cooking dinner, that's much more glamorized, and you can watch people cook dinner on on YouTube. You can watch people and you can watch videos about bed rotting, and there's even brain rot videos. That's another thing where it's
Brain rot?
yeah, brain rot, where it's just usually it'll be some sort of satisfying background playing in the background, like satisfying video, and it'll just be talking about different things, and they just call them brain rot videos. So I think that's one of the big reasons with younger adults, because it can kind of be glamorized,
Well, social media
online.
obviously
Yeah,
has a lot to do with the glamorization. TikTok, especially. You know, I,
yeah,
I'm I have my own feelings on TikTok, but they seem to normalize or glamorize bed rotting. I mean, come on, we saw those trends with people running alongside of a moving car.
yeah.
With
I know.
doors open. I mean,
Yeah,
what's
that
next?
was the
Jump out of an airplane
Kiki,
without a
do you
parachute?
love me? Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we curtail social media to stop some of those trends?
I think that, that's a really tall order. Let me
Yeah.
say, let me say that
Yes,
first. That is
exactly.
a really tall order,
Without censorship, okay?
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
better way. Yeah.
But, um, I think that it's a trend that, I think what's important is that we try to make sure we're differentiating between, bed rot, literally, uh, bed rotting in an unhealthy way and self-care. I think that, and basically bed rotting is kind of a catch-all term nowadays for self-care. But I think just making sure people understand the differences. If you're bed rotting every day for a week, that's not necessarily bed rotting. Now we're talking, we could be getting into clinical depression or, those sorts of things. So I think that it's just making sure that we're balancing that. I think the
Well,
balance
let's
is
take
everything.
that along the way, if we can, the practical side. If
Mhm.
someone finds themselves like bed rotting often, what steps should they take to break that cycle in a healthy way?
Well, I think, the number one, try and stop. If you can, get out of bed, go take a shower, get moving. A lot of times when I was younger, I remember mom, I'd wake up, I don't feel good. She'd be, oh, you just need to get a shower and just head to school. You're gonna feel better, or whatever. And I mean, I think to some degree, maybe that's a solution sometimes, but people need to be making sure that they're balancing self-care and bed rotting.
Are there alternative ways to get that rest, to recharge and stuff without bed rotting?
Absolutely. I mean, take a bath. There's all sorts of different ways to have a break and to take care of ourselves other than just laying in bed. I mean, for some people, playing music is self-care, or listening to music can be self-care. Going for a walk, or calling a friend and just talking about what's going on. I mean, all of those things are self-care. You know, it's finding the right types of self-care at the right times, you know, where for me, a lot of times, you know, if it's a really busy day and there's not a lot of time for self-care, you know, maybe I'll try and take a bath instead of a shower that day, or, you know, something that just where I'm forced to take some time for me, basically. Something that's forcing me to kind of slow down and let the steam roll off, so to speak.
Mhm. See, I love my personal way, and even Jen's. We used to go to the Bahamas all the time, and I even had membership in this one place. But she loved to walk along the beach, pick up seashells and stuff. You know, that was her hobby.
Yeah.
And I used to say, "See you," and sit there on the beach and just stare out. We were right there on the ocean, and just sit there for hour or two at a time. And sometimes I'd have, my MP3 player playing, and
Uh-huh.
headphones or something. But I wasn't even really listening to it was background stuff. I was watching the waves because I
Yeah.
worked a job. I was working 70, 80 hours a week, being self-employed, you get busy sometimes. And you're doing that week after week after week after week. Yeah, you're going to start to burn out. But to me, it
Yeah.
was just get away from phones. It was get away from TV, get away from the computer. Computer for me was a big thing because I was a web designer. Just get away from it all and just enjoy nature. Become one with nature. Go for a walk in the woods. I don't mean the woods, but there's plenty of state parks and stuff around that you can, go for a walk, just a little hike somewhere.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. You come back, that's sometimes even better than what you're doing bed riding. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes even now, correct me if I'm wrong, if that person who's bedriding, can't that play on their head too? Look at me, I'm just sitting here doing nothing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time.
I instead I could be doing something constructive. And what am I doing? I'm sitting here doing nothing.
Mhm.
So that's only going, you may think, wow, this is whatever, glamorous sitting around in your pajamas all day. But you may think it's something that looks cool, but there are better things to do. That's what we're trying to explain, to be cool
Yeah.
and to unwind and to relax. Um, how do family and friends, how should they respond if they see someone who's spending a lot of time bedrotting?
You know, I'm a firm believer that simply, you know, mentioning it to the person in a non, you know, confrontational, kind, loving way is always one of the best things that you can do. And simply saying, hey, you know, I've been noticing you've been spending a lot of time in bed. I just want to make sure, you know, everything's okay. You know,
Mhm.
um, and many times if the person is looking for, you know, to talk with someone about what's going on, that provides them an opportunity or a vehicle to do so.
Yeah, I mean, you see a child um wanting to stay in bed all the time.
Mhm.
There's probably another issue, an underlying issue that you're not seeing. They could be
Yeah.
being bullied at school. They may just hate school. Okay, that's what I was actually joking with someone the other day about that. Yeah, I was one that hated school. You had to like pull me, when I was a child to go to school. But there's something else you should be watching for. And I hope that those people that are around, even if it's your spouse, you need to be paying attention why, there's a good chance they're clinically depressed over something. And, one day, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that's cool. But if they're doing it a lot, there's a sign going on there.
I mean,
Why
I
even
think if I notice that the person is in bed more than they're not, you know, like that's a pretty good indicator that I may need to just try and see what's going on, you know, and
Mhm.
check in on them.
And we're not talking about someone that's worked all day, come
Yeah.
home, eating dinner, and then going to spend the night watching TV or something. That's not. We're talking bedriding is the entire day of just basically getting up to get food or going to the bathroom break and just staying in bed. Not showering, not changing clothes, and just staying there, and hopefully you got Lysol, spray the room when they're done.
Yes.
And stuff there. So now we've spoken and delved into this trending topic tonight. We've seen all of what the TikTok hysteria is all about. I have a few final questions I want to ask Dr. Davis, and then we're going to do something a little special, which I'm not sure even Dr. Davis realizes what we're going to do unless he's looked at everything ahead of time here. Do you see any positives in this trend, like helping people give themselves permission to rest?
Yeah, I think that aspect of it is extremely positive. I always say, and you could ask any student intern, any students, any staff I've ever worked with throughout my entire career. I always jokingly say, I'm so tired of hearing about self-care because when we're in school, learning to be therapists, they just pound that into our head. Self-care, 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 constantly. And we kind of, will um, lightheartedly joke about that. But the reality is, I think giving ourselves permission to be tired and to say, hey, I need to rest, or hey, I need to stay in bed today. I think that as long as that is not the constant, or what's happening the majority of the time, I think that is probably a really good thing because it speaks to the importance of self-care.
And yeah, and we talk about self-care so often on the show here,
Mhm.
and it's really important. We try to take care of others, but we also need to take care of ourselves. As
Yeah.
we've said, we're caretakers, everything else. So, what message would you want listeners to take away? And I'm not only going to restrict it down to bedrotting, but all of these different trends that you see, like on TikTok, and I hate to pick TikTok out, but it seems to be where the trends are. You don't really see them as much on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's more of a TikTok thing. Um, these dangerous trends that
Yeah.
people are doing. What would you want our listeners to know about that?
I think the most important thing is, basically making sure that what I'm doing safe, number one. If it's a trend that requires me to do something that could hurt me or cause harm to me or somebody else, avoid that like the plague. That's not a good trend to be participating in. When it comes to bed rotting, I think the most important takeaway on that is we need to be mindful of, are we taking a break because we need to take care of us, or are we simply avoiding life? And sometimes avoiding life for a short period of time is a-okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's a-okay. Sometimes we have to do that because um, you can't uh, we can't run on no sleep or no food. I mean, so it's important that we're taking care of ourselves, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves in multiple ways other than bed rotting.
And what I just want to add to people on that is that with all of these TikTok trends, don't just do it because it's a trend and something is trending at that moment. Because I've seen some stupid things where they go up to police officers and and do I mean, because the person is an idiot doesn't mean you need to be an idiot. I
Yeah.
think what my mom used to say was, if everybody else jumped off the bridge, would you go and jump off the bridge with them? And that's really what all this trending is about. One person decided, hey, this is cool, I'm going to jump off the bridge. And now everyone's jumping off the bridge as well. You'd
Yeah.
be just as cool by not doing it as doing it. So now we want to try to incorporate a new segment into our shows towards the end of each episode. And as you just saw, we're going to call this the lightning round. I'm going to ask Dr. Davis 10 quick questions. Some are simple as yes and no. But so let's begin. I think we can have some fun with this. The first one word to describe bed rotting.
Ambivalence.
Two, is it better than a nap? Yes or no?
No.
Three, healthy is self-care. Bed rotting or
Walking out.
walk outside.
Oh, walk outside.
4, most surprising thing you heard from a client or friend say they did while bed rotting.
Um, Basically, I think one of the funniest things is clients. I've had a few clients tell me like man, I got all my chores done from bed, like ordered all their groceries, had them delivered, all that. Basically, just and that's okay sometimes for a day. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Now, do you think this trend will last or fade out within a year?
I think it'll fade out.
Mhm. 7, what's more relaxing, reading a book in bed or scrolling through social media?
Reading a book.
8, would you recommend bed rotting to someone who's burned out? Yes or no, or even it depends.
Uh, yes, in small doses, because if that, yeah, if it gets them to rest, then by all means.
Number 9, if you could rename bed rotting to something less harsh, what would you call it?
Uh, Taking a bed day.
There you go. We'll take a rest day, I think. Yep.
Yeah,
10, quick tip in 10 seconds or less. One thing people should do after a bed rotting session to reset.
get out of bed, make the bed, and open your blinds.
Mhm.
Let daylight in.
And I recommend get some Lysol and some to
Yeah,
freshen
and
up the room.
bathe.
Yes, exactly. Clean your sheets good. If you've been eating in bed, you don't want to have bed bugs
Yep.
and stuff from there. So, well, that brings us that brings us to the end of today's conversation on the trending topic of bed rotting. We've seen how it can feel like taking a break from the fast pace of life, a chance to recharge, or simply a way to escape for a little while. But we've also talked about the risks, how spending too much time disconnecting in bed can sometimes blur the line between rest and avoidance, and how it might even signal deeper struggles like burnout, anxiety, or depression. The big takeaway here is this: rest is important. Take time for yourself is absolutely necessary. But key is the balance here. Okay. If you find that bed rotting is happening too often, or it's starting to interfere with your motivation, your relationships, or your overall well being, it may be time to check in with yourself or reach out for support. Remember, mental health isn't about avoiding life. It's about engaging it with ways to help you thrive. Sometimes that means giving yourself grace and a break. And sometimes it means taking a harder step of getting out of bed and moving forward each day, even when you really just don't feel like it. Now, we hope today's discussion gave you some insight and encouragement. If this episode resonated with you or you know someone who might need to hear it, please share it with them. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upcoming episode. And just do that if you can. If you're watching the episode, just go in and leave us a little comment. Say, hey, great show, or, yeah, bed rotting, never heard of it, anything like that.
Yeah,
Those
tell us a
comments,
topic you want us to cover.
right.
Anything. We love feedback.
We love the feedback, plus it also helps the channel. It helps it get recognized a little more. So please visit our website at yourlifematterspodcast.com for more information on the show and a place where you can find some of your official Your Life Matters podcast items for sale. And as always, thank you for joining us. You know, we live in an age where violence seems to be the replacement of being civil and talking about our differences. Everyone seems to have a huge chip on their shoulders these days, and they're ready to fly off the handle and do some senseless things. Dr. Davis and I implore you to tone down the rhetoric a little bit. Let's just take that volume like we did musically and just turn the volume down a little bit. Disconnect. Probably one of the best advice I personally can give, is disconnect a bit from the news and politicians on both sides. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, just get away from all of that a little bit. There's life going on outside, not the life they want us to be involved mentally in. Remember, we're real people. We all breathe the same air. We all live and share the same planet. Well, aliens could be here, but at least we're sharing this planet. Bed rotting will not make the world any better. That has to start from deep within us. Every step you take is a part of your own unique story. Embrace your worth. Keep moving forward. remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you are valuable and you are important. Take time to cherish yourself and especially those around you. And never forget, your life matters. God bless you all. We hope to see you again next week for another new episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for this week's new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Please be sure to join us again next Thursday for another great episode with your hosts, Steve Hodgson and psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Please remember to subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so, and hit the like button and leave a comment. Your help with this helps us reach a wider audience that may need our help.